welcome to the Week in Review. I am Mamadou Mbodj. Yes, today I'm sitting in the main hostess chair because the usual occupant is indisposed this week. To help me go through some of the stories, I've got my colleague, the inimitable Usman Jata.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mbodj, for once again hosting me on the program.
Absolutely, and I also have, of course, Usman Sonko, our sign language interpreter. Thank you for joining us. Well, we take 10 headline stories of the week and we try to go into them into some depth. And this week, what have we got? According to the Gambia Immigration Department, they've noticed a recent upsurge in the number of applications for passports. I wonder why that is. We'll go into that. And the Vice President has launched what they call the Trade Logistics Charter. It is in collaboration with the Tony Blair Institute. We'll go into some of the talking points there. And there's a polio vaccination campaign underway. It started on the 12th. It will go on until the 15th this month. And then there will be a phase 2 in December. We'll go into some of the talking points. And of course, I'm sure the whole country has been waiting with sort of bated breath on our match with Comoros. It's a crunch match. It will determine to a huge extent whether we'll go to this year's AFCON. So those were some of the headlines we'll go through. As I said earlier, we've got 10 stories. Now we will begin with the first one. The President's Meet the People tour. Yeah, let's listen to Amibojang Sisoho, the Director of Press and PRO of the President, tell us what they have in store for us this year.
And he will depart from Banjul to the North Bank region. That's where it will start, the first leg. From North Bank, you will have programs, as you will know. We have 20 scheduled joint meetings. And then there will be 26 site visits. These joint meetings will be like 3 or 2 districts coming together, and they will have a single meeting.
Mr. Jata, there we just heard Amibojang Sisoho, the Director of Press and PRO of the President, telling us there really the President's itinerary in many ways. So 20 joint meetings and 26 site visits. This is really sort of hectic on the face, but that's the kind of tour that is going to subject himself.
Quite hectic.
To fulfill a constitutional mandate.
Quite hectic, quite impressive as well. And I must say, it's an important initiative and platform for the President to have a conversation with the people. It's very important because through these conversations, through these visits, site visits of like a project site, it will help the President to understand the challenges people go through and things, the level of progress in the country. It's very crucial. And equally as well, I think it will help to promote unity. And it will be important to know that this year's theme, in fact, it's peace and unity. And I think that's very crucial for the President. You know, it's a constitutional mandate, and according to the Constitution, the President should go on this tour twice in a year. So it's very important for the fact that Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of America, defined democracy as the government of the people, by the people and for the people. So it's important that the President goes to the people, you know, meet with them to know the challenges, you know, they're going through.
Absolutely. I think the theme is peace and development, is something like that. But you're absolutely correct. This is something started really during the former president, the first president, used to be called Meet the Farmer's Tour. Oh, yeah. But what distinguishes this one, it's that it seemed to have broadened out. It's not simply about talking to farmers, perhaps preparing for the rainy season, but here is about people having a dialogue with people so that you know what they think. You know, they express their concerns, even offer suggestions about the direction of, you know, the President is going, isn't it?
Sure. Like you said, it's an in-depth tour. Like it does not only specified on, it's not only specified on farming. It goes beyond farming. You know, we're talking about a lot of things, a lot of challenges that people are going through, and it's important for the President to know it. It's beyond farming. Like the state of the economy and infrastructure-wise. People want to see a lot of development, in the areas of health. So the only way it could happen is, one way it could happen is for the president to go out to meet them. It's very crucial. That way around, he would have first-hand information about what is on the ground. It's important. It's important.
That's it.
It's a contract.
And in many ways, it helps in policy formulation, isn't it? Because each region, you would see their local problems, isn't it?
Sure.
So you're not going to have one size fits all. So it's a good way of knowing the priorities for each region and then addressing them, isn't it?
It's crucial, despite the fact that one may ask the question, what is the role of the National Assembly members? They are representing the people. But one thing it can also do, like you said, like it will help to make informed decisions in terms of policies and so forth. But it will also help to promote the theory of checks and balances. It does not only stop within the government, but the checks and balances between the people and the government. Because, like I said, the government is answerable to the people are the government. So it's a very crucial toll that the president is going to take. And it's important that, like, the public should not see it as some sort of politics. This is beyond politics. This is about the Gambia. Because you have to understand that the Gambia is still in its transition. So this tour is very, very crucial for the Gambia, so that Gambians could come out, voice out what they think could take the country to another level. This is what the Gambia needs. And at this point, the Gambia is the most important thing, because the Gambia is what stays. Or presidents come and go, but the Gambia stays.
Absolutely. But you've touched on a very important issue there, whether the tour has been politicized, as they try to put it. But the other day we had Bojang Sissoho. She appeared this morning, and he said, of course it is political. What do you expect? But what kind of politics is being played out? You see, you really cannot take the politics out of it, can you? Maybe, for instance, imagine if the president had gone on this tour and sort of insisted meeting only his supporters, then what would have, you find that objectionable, don't you? But nobody's talking about that. But this, by nature, it is political. It just depends on what kind of politics is being played.
I think, Mr. Boj, it's important to go back to the foundation of politics. According to Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, man by nature is a political animal. So in life, everything we do is based on politics. Itself, it's politics. You're eating, which I'm eating with you, it's politics. I'm talking with you, it's politics. I'm trying to convince you that this is not purely politics, but in itself, it's politics. So politics is not anything like you can remove from the equation. Life itself is politics. So basically, to be able to satisfy, to meet the rewards of God, you have to worship Him to get the rewards. So that itself, it's politics. So politics is in the equation. You cannot remove it from it. It's human nature and it's part of the universe.
It's part of it. So thank you. I'm sure we'll be getting reports, from this tour at these various stops.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much there, Mr. Usman Jatta. Now to our next story. Polio vaccination is underway. Here, let's listen to our reporter, Laurie M. Kamara, to tell us more.
Health officials, with support from partners such as the WHO and UNICEF, are working diligently to protect children from the threat of polio virus. At the polyclinic in Banjul, mothers seized the opportunity to vaccinate their babies, ensuring their protection against the disease. Dr. Mustafa Bitte, the Chief Medical Director of the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, thanked all those who have supported the ministry in this important effort.
Yes, polio vaccination campaign, because recently they discovered the microbes in sewage in key areas, even though we haven't got any human cases yet at all. But really taking precautions there to vaccinate everybody. That is the goal anyway. What do you make of it?
I think the Englishman has finished everything. Prevention is better than cure. So it's important that the Gambia and other countries are taking up such initiatives to make sure that they create a shield against the disease. It's very important, because as children or as infants, they are vulnerable to most of these diseases. Their immune systems are not very strong. This is what science will tell us, and this is the reality to some extent. So there is a need to take up like some bolster shots of vaccines like the polio to be able to be resistant, to build resistance to some extent, because you never know, like you said, the environment, some of these things could be visible and you cannot just, spot them and on any basis. So it's important that like such vaccination is taken. And if you follow the history, like since 1988, since they started this polio vaccine, it has led to a significant decrease, And you would understand that globally you have got almost 20 million cases of polio. So it's a very important initiative that our government and our health authorities are taking up such steps towards making sure that it is combated before it comes to our infants.
Absolutely, and the method seems very vigorous, isn't it? Door-to-door campaigns, going to strategic locations like childhood development centers, schools, nurseries, that sort of thing, a comprehensive onslaught, as it were.
I think that is very important. Like those are the hot spots. One may call it like schools, markets, and so forth. But it will be important as well, like in an instant of like in schools, like to involve the parents, like to know whether they want their children to take the vaccines, because consent matters a lot. You're dealing with children. They have not got the understanding of what they're doing or what they're taking. And I think the school alone cannot serve as authority to determine whether they should take the vaccine. So that is very important on the other side, despite the fact that it's a good initiative, or like we are dealing with hotspots and they could easily get vaccinated, but consent also matters a lot, because science will tell you there are advantages and disadvantages to everything you see. There are people with health histories, like me. I was diagnosed with ulcer. So if I go to the hospital, anytime I meet a physician, I tell the person I was a former ulcer patient. With that, they would always prescribe certain medicines for me, because if not, it could trigger my ulcer back. So I think that is very important. In as much as it's an important initiative, it's crucial to involve the parents to have a dialogue about it. And to some extent, this will help to fight the vaccine hesitancy as well. We have seen with the case of the COVID-19. Most people don't believe in the vaccines because they feel like the vaccines are not safe. But with proper dialogue, with proper sensitization, I think it will go a long way in fighting those barriers to some extent. Because, in fact, those are the major barriers, when it comes to the issue of vaccine immunization.
But here, with your example there, you are an adult. So you can make certain decisions.
Sure.
Here we're talking about vaccinating kids under 5.
Under 5.
So here they are not taking that decision. Somebody else is taking the decision on their behalf, isn't it? Isn't there, therefore, a balance that needs to be struck here between parental consent and public health concerns? We have seen where in an emergency, this is a classic clash between liberty and security.
Sure.
What about in discharging your liberty, you put other people's lives at risk? Because when these things are contagious, this is the key.
Sure.
So how far are you going to go with this consent vis-a-vis the public health concerns?
I think what they could do, or like a significant step they could take, is prior to their coming, they could inform the school that they plan to come to vaccinate like their children. That is one step they could do, inform the school, and the school will then inform the parents, because in every school, I believe, there is a parents-teachers association, and this association usually is responsible to talk about issues regarding children or their children at school. So it will be important to pass that information to them. Then they could have meetings about it, and they could seek the consent from there, and they would determine whether, like, parents who are not interested will talk to them. They will tell them that we don't want our children to be vaccinated or so forth. Because, like, you go to other compounds, like, you may find parents there, they will tell you, man, small dormy, doing their jail vaccination, we don't allow it. So that consent part of it is very critical to some extent.
Absolutely. It's just that I'm taking issue. I don't think that it outweighs the public health concerns, which really should take primacy, as it were, over individual concerns, because here you're talking about communal threat. It's a
Sure.
threat to the community.
Sure.
So I think that these concerns should be a trump. They should trump, as it were, individual concerns. But it doesn't matter. The next part I was going to come to is about awareness, isn't it? This is where it comes in.
Sure.
Being aware of such possibilities. We know that there are certain vaccines. They're like a must for children, isn't it? It's not simply polio,
Yeah.
hepatitis B, yellow fever. There are all sorts. And with us as a society, there was a time there was never any discussion about these things. More than 90%. We had a very good rate of vaccinations, as it were. Isn't what we need to address is something that emerged really during COVID-19. That was the first time actually we heard the phrase vaccine hesitancy and that kind of language.
Yeah.
Isn't there a problem of how social media operates right now, isn't it? That it doesn't care about authority and each can just dish out, as it were, swirl about whatever you want. But responsible people must be mindful of the objective facts, not the conspiracy theories. Don't you think there's a danger, and what should be our role as especially the media?
Sure.
Don't you think that's really what the problem is?
I think it's part of the problems. Like there are a lot of problems, and the media is part of the problems. Like the awareness part you just mentioned, there is a lot of information circulating out there. So it's always difficult to to choose, to tell which information is best. And you would notice that even like among health practitioners, you know, some of them disagree. Like they don't agree with each other. So you would notice that like it's a very critical issue. But I think it's important like for the media to set the center stage, to make sure that they involve the right authorities, the right people, to make sure that this issue is well communicated to the people. Because you know we live in the 21st century, and there is a lot of advancement in terms of technology. Before in the time of our forefathers, you know, much was not known about the dangers of these some of these diseases. But now with the advancement of technology, a lot has changed, and I think there is a need for proper sensitization when it comes to not only diseases related to polio, but beyond polio. We're talking about, let's say, like diabetes to some extent. You know, they are very detrimental to the human system. You know, so if there is no proper awareness to some extent, it may raise up all in from the universe to some extent.
Absolutely, and it depends on what is aware of. In some of these cases, mainstream science, there's no argument with that, but you're bound to have fringe sort of beliefs.
Sure.
So it is up to us to distinguish between the two. Now, the first phase of it will be from 12th to 15th of November. Everybody must know that. And the second phase would be 12th to 15th of December. It is important that we all get our kids vaccinated for the sake of the many. It's often like that. Thank you very much there, Mr. Jatta.
You're welcome.
Now we go on to our next story. Well, according to the Gambia Immigration Department, we've recently seen an upsurge in the applications for passports. Why is that? Let's just take a look.
Now, what we do is, the fact that we are not printing the ID cards, we give out applicants what we call as the printout of the ID cards. It contains their entire biodata with the ID card number, and that is what they will use now to apply for the passport.
Yeah, that's it. We had the PRO, is the PRO law, we call him in there. So there, what he was talking about was that because you need your ID card in some instances for you to get a passport, but here we are not issuing ID cards because of that arrangement we had with the company doing it. So once the contract expired, we haven't renewed it, but they hope to start another one. What did you make of this story when it broke?
I think it's beyond the ID card issues, but it translates a message that, sorry to say it, but most people don't take the issue of a national document seriously. And this is well translated when the news broke that like the Saudi, there is an agreement between the government of the Gambia and Saudi Arabia and Spain as well. So you could tell most people want to travel, but how can you travel without having the relevant documents for you to travel? So this is the question. So there is a need for Gambians to go back to the drawing board, make sure that like they get documents with or without traveling opportunities. Like there was this instance of a guy who was supposed to travel. And imagine what, because he did not prepare, he did not thought that like he would ever travel, because most people think for you to travel, you need money. In fact, which is a fact, you need money, but at times traveling opportunities would just pop out for free. Like all you need to do is submit your passports and basic identities, and they will just process everything for you. So things like that happened. So, but it's like most people are not prepared, and there is a need for them to have like their national documents.
You've mentioned something, this deal with Saudi Arabia and the one with Spain. I mean, let's be realistic with these things. How many can they take really? Often in these deals, they can never be thousands. I cannot imagine it, though it might be possible. So don't you think that a lot of people will possibly have their passports, but end up being disappointed with this particular deal, with this opportunity? Let's put it that way.
It's crucial for us to understand that like when such opportunities pop up, they start in trials, because you would have expected, like you said, you would not expect that they will take thousands for a start. They will conduct a trial and error test to see whether it will work, whether people will not abscond. Because this is the question, this is the headache that most people, that the government is very concerned about. Imagine somebody going and absconding, you blocking the opportunities of thousands of other people, if not millions. So it's another question, but I think it's not a bad thing. It's not a loss. If you get your national identification and you're still not part of the people who are going to Spain or Saudi Arabia, there are many opportunities. Even traveling to Senegal, you need your national identity. If you go, they would request for an ID card or your passport, and to some extent they would stamp it. It shows that you are a traveler, and with that stamp, you get more opportunities to travel. So it's very important.
Thank you very much. And according to the Immigration Department, they've got the security measures in place so that they will only give it to people who legitimately deserve it.
Sure.
Thank you very much there, Mr. Jatta. Now let's go to our fourth story. Our Vice President launched what is called the Trade Logistics Charter. We've been working with the Tony Blair Institute. Let's just listen to the...
The Trade Logistics Charter is more than a document, as some may believe. It is a framework meant to bind all stakeholders within the trade community, and it sets out specific key performance indicators that we seek to achieve. Through this framework, we are determined to streamline custom processes, optimize the management of physical assets, and ensure effective coordination across various government agencies. The ultimate objective of this is to impact the lives and livelihoods of Gambians through increased economic opportunities and affordable commodities for all.
There we got the Vice President. And this project has been on for a while, hasn't it? Because I remember in January when they had that workshop, the workshop sort of to discuss the findings of a study, comprehensive study, conducted at the Port of Banjul, as it were, how to improve trade. And it was with the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, I think that's what it's called. So now, this is it. It seems now it's time to implement it.
I think I would start with to say that the Gambia has a lot of opportunities. The Gambia has got resources. The Port of Banjul, like you said, it is at a very strategic location, and if it is fully harnessed, it could lead to a lot of economic potentials. I think such initiatives are very important for the country, like having port infrastructure, expanding the port. To some extent, there was this thing that I was always thinking about: why do prices go up? Is it because of GRA? So to some extent, the MD of the ports, Mr. Jobate, was able to clarify this. He was able to mentioned that the port is not very wide to allow certain class of ships to dock to be able to like bring certain goods into the country. So you have like many ships coming to Gambia to bring in goods, and because of that, because our port could only take like 3 ships at a time, 3 to 2, something like that. Like it takes a lot of time for other ships to come and dock, and any time they spend at the sea, they pay money, and these tax they pay or the money they pay, it translates on the prices. So there is a need for port infrastructure. If the port is generating income for the country, what would happen? That will translate in other infrastructure in the country. We're talking about transport infrastructure. Now, it's a matter of diverting those funds to transport. We have more roads. We could equally as well divert them to sports. We could have stadiums, you know. So the port could generate, it could bring a lot of revenue to the country, because, you know, people cannot, the world is interconnected. Like people have to do business, you know, goods and services have to flow for the continent, for the world to operate, for nations to operate as well. So it's a very crucial initiative.
That's it. That's why the Vice President said this is a framework. You see, for this to do all the things that you want it to do. So here they will be setting out key performance indicators. They'll also be sort of streamlining their custom processes. So these are some of the things optimized, as a management of physical assets and the like, effective coordination. So the administrative, the managerial aspects, as it were, that we need so that it will deliver the goods that you just mentioned. That's really the virtue, as it were, of this framework, as they call it. Thank you very much, Mr. Usman Jatta. Now we go on, well, halfway. We've gone halfway now. Wow. On Friday, the Gambia faced Comoros in a crunch AFCON qualifier. Before we set off, our coach was rather upbeat, as it were, in mood. Let's just listen to him.
There's a liveliness. There's that laughter and joking amongst the group, which is good, but you can also see the seriousness, the steeliness in their eyes, that they know what has to be done on Friday and they're ready to go and do it.
New players to the squad, like Babukar Njai, Alassana Jatta, and Abubakar Bari, trained for the first time ever with the national team, and the coach was impressed with what he saw.
First of all, the 3 guys, you know, Babu Njai, Abubakar Bari, and Alassana Jatta, you know, we really welcome them. You know, the nice thing is, again, all players who, you know, it's not like they're coming in and everyone in the group is strangers. There's guys they grew up with in the squad. You know, they know family relationships. They know they maybe went to the same school when they were kids. They come from the same communities. So there's already pre-existing relationships there, which means they feel at home.
Oh. This was before the match. Now we know the scores.
Sure.
We lost. But just imagine that, the optimism there, but somehow everything collapsed on the pitch. What did you make of it?
It's like the coach's translation, like a prediction did not work as he insinuated.
Well, he didn't predict anything as such. He just said that, you know, they were all in the right frame of mind. That was the sort of thing he wanted to.
He did mention about connection, like them like having that relationship.
Yeah, but that's sort of prediction.
Which is very important.
We haven't won, so I don't think that's fair.
It's arguable.
That's not fair. That's
but
not
I
fair.
think beyond everything, sport is beyond physical. Mental, it also contains mental part of it, and when mental is mentioned, you will talk about sport infrastructure, the need to play games in Gambia. I think that is one thing that also counts. You would look at Gambia's performance in the past years when they played in Gambia, the performance they had, and in, you know, when they played in other countries. There is some sort of difference to some extent, because you have got that national like cheering, like people, you know. It's crucial. So I think that should be now the new focus of the authorities. You know, we should not see this as a failure. We should see it as a progress in our journey towards perfecting our sports. You know, it's important. Like they would say, Rome was not built in one day. So all of these things are lessons that the authorities could learn from. You know, to start a new campaign to make sure that we move our sport to another direction. You know, we have got the potentials. Recently we have seen a lot of young international players, like the likes of Yankuba Minte, who are doing a lot. So I think that's a significant improvement for the Gambia. So it's a gradual process, and I believe we would catch up.
What about the coach? What do you think about the coach, McKinstry? Jonathan McKinstry?
I think there is a need for him to also create some balance, aside from to also allow some public perception, because at times you will notice that the public have got a good eye when it comes to the right players, So I think that is very important. If he allows some public perception about the games, pre-match, it will really help in the turnout. It will really help out in the play.
Absolutely. So I think our chances of going to AFCON now, it seems completely gone. But you are not. You seem to think that there are positives that we can take from this.
That is it.
Yes, well,
that is it.
Thank you very much, there, Usman. We've come to halfway of the program, so we'll take a short break.
Introducing the Q-Smart and Q-Smart Plus, where innovation meets affordability. Capture life's precious moments with stunning clarity thanks to our high-resolution cameras. Enjoy uninterrupted performance with a fast processor and a long-lasting battery that keeps up with your day. The Q-Smart offers a 5.9-inch immersive display, powerful performance, and an all-day battery life, all for just $3,400. Plus get an incredible bundle of 15 gigabytes of data, 120 minutes of talk time, and 300 SMS absolutely free. Upgrade to the Q-Smart Plus, featuring a faster processor, an extended battery life, and a larger 6.5-inch screen for just $4,000. With it, you receive a massive 30 gigabytes of data, 300 SMS, and 120 minutes of talk time completely free. All bundles are spread across a 3-month period. Don't miss out. Get your Q-Smart or Q-Smart Plus from QCell today. Discover the best in quality and value right here in the Gambia. Available at all QCell customer care centers across the country. For more information, call 111. QCell Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
Hello, welcome back to the Weekend Review. I'm Budumbo sitting in for Adedarami this week. And I've got my colleague here, Mr. Usman Jatta, going through the stories with me. You've already missed 5 stories, but we've got 5 to go. Now to the next story. During the week, an imprisoned Eritrean journalist, imprisoned for more than 23 years, won the Swedish Human Rights Prize. Let's just listen.
David Isaac, who holds dual Eritrean Swedish citizenship and one of the founders of Setit, Eritrea's first independent newspaper, has been given the Edelstam Prize for his exceptional courage. He was detained in 2001 after his paper published letters demanding democratic reforms. David's daughter, Bethlehem Isaac, will accept the prize on the 19th of November in Stockholm on behalf of her father, who still remains in prison.
The 60-year-old David Isaac, he was part of a group including cabinet ministers and members of parliament and independent journalists arrested in 2001 and never been charged with anything, still in prison. And this is what's been recognized by the Swedish Edelstam Award for human rights, upholding human rights. What do you make of it as a journalist?
It's quite sad, for the fact that the time he spent in jail is quite long overdue to some extent, and it translates that there is a need to see the media as equal partners in development. We don't only see them as normal watchdogs, but watchdogs in development to some extent. There are certain critiques you will get from the media. They're not just mere critics. It's an opportunity for you to grow. It's we're showing you the loopholes, the places you should improve, the sectors, It's a chance for any government to thrive, for any government to enhance and improve its mode of operation to some extent. So it also depicts that like a real journalist would go to any level to make sure that he achieves his goal.
You see, you've got this sort of high-minded conception of what journalism is, but for a lot of people out there, oh, we are the enemy. Really, we are the ones who are turning the world topsy-turvy. We don't really have a good name. Journalists don't really have a good name out there. Why is that? How do you explain this discrepancy, this massive gap between the ideal and the reality?
I think that's a very important point. Like, it would just lead us to this point. There are two groups of people. You have got a journalist and a journalist. Like, you have got like real journalists and just followers. We've got recently, they would call them citizen journalists. So because of that, there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation to some extent. And to some extent, like the number of like known journalists or citizen journalists have outnumbered like the real journalists to some extent. So it's always difficult for journalists like who are termed as professionals, and they are indeed professionals because you go to school, you study about the rules, you know, of journalism, you know, the laws that guide journalism, that like reporting, making sure that you don't support any sides, you know. So this is the problem. There is a lot of misinformation out there, and it's not caused by journalists. So it's a challenge for the media field. Like in Gambia,
absolutely, but,
yes.
But then the risks are very high,
yes,
as demonstrated by this David Isaac's case.
So in such cases, you would see that journalists become now a threat to most administrations. You know, they see journalists as people who would crumble like their administrations down. So they would do anything to make sure that they get them, you know, they put them down. But in real essence, you know, they should see them as equal partners in development, because the media is the fourth estate after the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. So the media has a crucial role to play in any nation. The media is the brand ambassador of any nation, you know, when it comes to development. You cannot do any development without involving the media. You look at the West today, we see the West and we say Europe is nice, America is this, then. It's the media, it's the way it's been portrayed. But in Africa, it's a different case. So I think it's very crucial that administrations see this eye.
Granted, it's also important for anybody who wants to go into journalism to know that it is a risky business. Are you willing to take that?
Indeed.
Let's move on to our next story. This is about the Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Their new Director General, the embassy, had a press conference. Let's just listen to what he had to say.
We had 444 cases between July and now, involving 465 persons, of which 265 are Gambians, 365 are Gambians, and 100 are non-Gambians. The non-Gambian arrestees include Senegalese, Bissau nationals, Sierra Leoneans, Guinea-Conakry nationals, Europeans, and Americans. Most of the Europeans were arrested with hard drugs, such as cocaine, some with ecstasies, and most of the Sierra Leonean nationals were arrested with coups. And of course, on a general note, most Gambians, for the most part, were arrested with cannabis.
Yes, quite interesting there.
Indeed.
Most Gambians, in most part, were arrested with cannabis, but whereas with the Americans, hard drugs, and with the Sierra Leoneans, they've got more kush. It's going to be, well, the whole world, they've always found it difficult to deal with drugs. What's the best policy about drugs? But he's confident there that we can reduce the numbers. What do you think? What do you make of it?
I think...
perhaps even first with the press conference, and I understand that he'll be having them regularly.
Sure. I think it's a crucial step taken by the Drug Law Enforcement Agency to be informing the public about their activities regarding drug arrest and cases in the Gambia. I think that's quite commendable, and it's important because at least it will also help like authorities, other authorities and international stakeholders to find ways of coping the menace in the country. But it translates a question like, how are these drugs coming into the country? I know they're not from Gambia. Like when you talk about Kus to some extent, how are they coming in? You know, what is happening with our security post? It's a question that every Gambian should ask. You know, that is something that is very important as far as these figures are concerned. He did mention about Americans and Gambians.
Multinationals.
Yes.
This is
and equally as well, you would also look at the security in our border post as well. Like, how are people allowed to come in? Like in other parts of the country, are they thoroughly checked? Are they there with the right requirements to come in the country? I believe if that is done to some extent, most of these things could be spotted. You know, in the Gambia, it's quite difficult. Like with our neighbor Senegal, we have got very porous borders like in southern Senegal. So it will be very difficult to control. Like one may argue that it may be difficult to control the coming in of like cannabis to some extent. And I think that's a question.
Okay. One of the things he said there, which was very important regarding law enforcement, he said what people do is that they would report a particular case, and then when they go over to arrest them, it's the locals themselves who will come and oppose, as it were, the arrest. Quite interesting. The other day as well, I was at the junction, and one driver sort of infringed one traffic regulation, and he went to the driver, the policeman went to the driver, but everybody around came and said, forgive him, Balalko. It's an extraordinary way, if you really want to combat something, yet that sentimentality takes hold over enforcing the law.
It's indeed a battle for the law enforcement officers, you know, with the societal, should I call it, norms, or like the society's perception about certain things. Because like in Gambia, people are very, should I say, they don't like to see other people going through certain challenges. They are remorseful, and they would always want to make sure that they protect other people. But I think beyond that, there is a need for them to allow the law enforcement officers to do their job as expected. Because what they are doing is, they should not see them as enemies. You know, they are doing a lot. They're playing a very critical role in the country in making sure that like we get a drug-free country, you know, where youth could thrive, because our population, 60% are youth.
But so they need our support. This is really what the idea is, for the rest of the population to realize that we need to enforce these rules. Otherwise, we'll just be going round in circles and damage.
It's like the Kus case.
Quite damaging.
The Kus is affecting a lot of youth these days, and it's quite traumatic and tragic. And I think, you know, it's something that cannot be left like that. Like, more action needs to be taken to make sure that like it is combated into the society, and authorities have to do that, and the society has to contribute. And like you said, it's important for everybody to come together to make sure that the menace is combated to some extent.
That's it. What you call sympathy, I call it mawkishness, just sentimentality in many ways. But we were reassured there in the press conference that regarding foreigners, because there have been many of them, what happens is that once they are convicted, then they put in an order to deport them. What do you think about that? Should we be doing that?
That is, you know, if you looked at like a political, how do I call it? Is it political science? To some extent, they will tell you, like in the case of diplomats, like they've got immunity. And to some extent, this immunity translates to foreign nationals as well. And like
when you are convicted, not when you are convicted, it's a completely different ball game, really. After you receive a conviction,
it's
a slightly different matter here.
Yeah. So it's a bit quite it's quite complicated though. But like if like you said, if they are convicted in that case, you know, they would have to serve to some extent, like to at least, even not the full term, but at least to show them like they've gone, because the conviction is not, it's not a punishment in it's like it's a message that they're sending you that you've done something wrong and it needs to be corrected, you know. So
but when you are locked up, it's a punishment because you are denied your liberty to move.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jatta. Now we move on to our next story. A new advisory committee of the National Population Commission Secretariat have an orientation during the week. Now let's just listen to Mariama Fane, Director of Public Affairs of the Commission, of the Secretariat rather.
With the launch of the advisory body for the Sweat Plus legal platform, comprising esteemed senior lawyers and experts in their field, the advisory committee will provide valuable strategic guidance to the legal platform. Their expertise will enhance the ability of the country legal platform in their engagements to create a robust legal environment that supports the goal of the Sweat Plus project.
That's it. Mr. Jatta, you covered that story.
Sure.
Didn't you? So take it on.
I think it's an important step taken
Mm-hmm.
by the government to make sure that like they launch such an advisory committee, because the legal platform is important. It's there to fight for the right of women, mostly like women and young girls who are at risk of like going through certain forms of abuse in society. So having such a platform, not only the platform, but like having the advisory committee, because this advisory committee is made out of like legal practitioners and religious leaders as well, and other stakeholders like in the security sector, like she mentioned. So these stakeholders or these authorities would work together as a team to make sure that they offer advice to the legal platform with regards to issues relating to abuse of women and girls in society. So it's a crucial step that they are doing. And in most cases, people don't know like their work actually, but they do a lot of things. Like you see their cars in public and you wonder like, what is the meaning of this? But they are playing a critical role when it comes to making sure that they support and protect the rights of girls and women in the country.
Absolutely, and it's important to get the strategic guidance, as it were, as the director said. So this will provide the strategic guidance,
sure, because
we need that for policy.
Even on that, yes, like on the side of policies, because we have got a lot of policies that are there, like to protect women and girls. But when it comes to implementation, it's always a problem. So you would notice that this committee, one role it will do is to make sure that like they advise the legal platform about the implementation of these policies to make sure that they are implemented to protect girls and women in the country, which is very crucial, because you cannot have those policies just like that there without being implemented. Then it's like they are of no use, So it's important. It's very, very important.
Interviewed there are two new members to this advisory committee.
Yeah.
One Dana MC Cham, a lawyer and an activist as well.
Yeah.
And she made that point, didn't she?
Yes.
We've got all these laws, but implementation is the issue. Also Imam Usman Jah.
Yeah, he also did mention
really just dimension of sort of advice of collective decision making, as he said.
It's important. It's important because, like he said, the Gambia is a religious country, and in doing so, like it's important to invite both parties, both like men from the Islamic perspective and the Christian perspective. And you would be surprised to know that like the commission has got like members, representatives from the from Islam, from the religious Islam side and the Christian side, which is very important. Like at least they can balance. They create a balance in the legal platform, and they can offer proper advice when it comes to diverse religions to some extent.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Jatta. Now we go to our penultimate story. It was World Diabetes Day. So here we'll listen to Dr. Mariam Jau from the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital to tell us more about diabetes.
It is a chronic condition where the blood sugar levels in the blood, they are high. And when that happens, it can be as a result of the body not being able to use insulin, or it's not producing any of it. Insulin, this is a hormone that is produced by one of the organs that is needed so that the blood can use the sugar that we eat. But if that key is not there, or the key has a problem, then it will lead to diabetes. We have type 1, type 2, and also gestational diabetes, which is which happens in pregnant women. So for type 2 diabetes, they can have diabetes for years and they will not have any symptoms.
That's it. That was the Dr. Mariam Jow. Very, very important, isn't it? I think some of us know one or two people who had their limbs amputated because of diabetes. It's really very important, isn't it? So for us to sort of understand, for the message, as it were, to spread around, people to know the different types and what they can do, isn't it? With diabetes 2, for instance, there's a lot that one can do, isn't it?
I think,
even with one.
Before coming to the prevention, I think it's important for people to understand. I don't know whether they have got her message about, like, her definition of what causes diabetes. The equation here, the central thing in the equation is sugar. Like, and sugar translates in Gambia, when you translate sugar in Gambia, it boils, it's equal to diet. So our diet is the problem. And there is a need for us to look into our diet. In these, like in Gambia, we consume a lot of sugar, like from the rice that we eat, from the bread that we eat.
Cereals and so many.
There's a lot of consumption of rice in our diet. So there's a need for us to balance that. You cannot stop the consumption of sugar because sugar itself is important in the body. But there's a need for us to look into that because without that, it will continue to be a national crisis in the country because, like she said, diabetes, if the insulin in your body is not able to regulate the amount of sugar that comes in your body, automatically you'll be exposed to diabetes. And the moment you're exposed to it, it could affect you to another level. So there is a need for a lot of awareness, like you said. There is a need a lot of awareness for people to understand the risks. But equally as well, when talking about that, one would also look at, are people financially stable to get into the right balanced diet to be able to avoid diabetes? That's another question. But I think with proper balance, like if you're able to reduce like a lot of the foods that you eat that are sugary, like people are exposed to like a lot of junk to some extent, like mint, soft drinks, they are all elements, that could lead to diabetes. And in our society, we consume them a lot in our naming ceremonies, at most of our social ceremonies, we were exposed to some of these things. And it's so sad that most people think that's the life.
Absolutely, and I think it's also very important to note that with type 2 diabetes, sometimes you don't show the symptoms until there's complications arise. Yeah. So it is important that we test. We go for these tests because it's important for you to diagnose it early, then it's easier to deal with it, to manage it. We're coming towards the end. I'm not going to give you any chance to come back in that. Finally, during the week, there was a graduation of some sort of a ceremony. Calling to the bar, as they call it, as lawyers call it. 82 graduates were called to the bar. Yeah, let's just listen to the Chief Justice.
For all intents and purposes, you should consider yourselves as bound, just as other legal practitioners, henceforth, with the code of conduct for lawyers, for legal practitioners, which requires certain levels of competence, levels of integrity and honesty and devotion to respect for justice and the rule of law.
Absolutely. Some elements of competence, integrity, respect for justice and rule of law. That sort of sums up really what we expect from our lawyers, as OCJ said there.
That is their shot. Like if you remove it from yourself, then you're no more considered as a professional. Your integrity, it's very important as a legal practitioner. You cannot lose that. And with regards to your integrity, you must follow the laws of the land, which is the Constitution, to make sure that you act accordingly as a legal practitioner. And like he just briefed them, though they are not fully, but they should consider themselves, because they're already in the legal platform or the legal profession. So they should consider themselves as members of, professionals to some extent.
Oh, absolutely. That's how it is. Being called to the bar. Remember, they have the academic stage. You get your LLB, and then you have the vocational
Sure.
That's where you do your BL, that's normally 1 year. And then they're not quite done yet. You have to do what they call the pupillage. It's almost like a secret society, and they've got all of these rituals, as it were. The pupillage is where you serve under a more experienced barrister.
Sure.
You're a barrister now, and afterwards. So this is it, 82 lawyers. And it is important, just as the CJ said, the notion of integrity, ethics, really be held sort of in high esteem in dispensing justice, in dealing in human interaction, really, institutions and people.
Yeah, because one might say the numbers are quite impressive, like that we're getting a lot of people in our legal system. And this could help a lot in making sure that our justice system goes to another level, because when we have more, especially having more Gambians manning such important positions, I think it would go a long way. But like you said, the professional aspect as well cannot be left behind. It's important because that is what makes them who they are. So it's important that is always at the back of their minds.
Well, isn't it very interesting as well? Out of the 82, 41 Gambians, people shouldn't think that all 82 were Gambians, and 41 from Nigeria, Sierra Leone, from the sub-region. I wonder, what does that tell us about our Gambia Law School?
It also translates that there is a lot of acculturation happening. You have got a lot of Sierra Leoneans in Gambia who have settled with their families, since the time of the war, and Nigerians as well. So there is a lot of acculturation. People are intermarrying, and what could you call them? Basically, virtually, they are Gambians to some extent. So it's also showing that we have got our education sector is improving gradually, because if you're able to have non-Gambians coming to study in our legal system, it's a significant plus for the Gambia.
And for some of us, we'll say, why not? For a very long time, Gambian students used to do their law school, the vocational training, either in Sierra Leone or in Nigeria. They all so now we've got this law school. I think this is really where I want to point out. Now we've got the law school. Instead of us going, now you have these people in the sub-region coming.
It's the reverse. It translates that there is a lot of development happening. There's a lot of development, and that comes with a lot of research from the authorities to make sure that to monitor, to see what is available in these countries that we can import, or we can import into the country to make sure that we boost our education system. Like the saying goes, Rome was not built in one day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's important for us to know how long it took to build Rome. Thank you very much, Mr. Usman Jatta.
You're most welcome.
And thank you very much, Mr. Usman Sonko, for today. You was my co-host and our sign language interpreter, Mr. Usman Sonko. And viewers, thank you very much. Until next time, hopefully, Adi Darame would have been back.